Hey everyone, welcome to another version of taping and how to tape, so to speak. Today we're looking at inside corners, and you'll see today that I'm using a syringe style pump to get most of the corners out of the way, to get the job done faster, to give the job a more uniform and even look. This particular machine does take some time to get used to, as all the machines in taping takes time to get used to. But what you're actually doing is you're trying to give an even consistent coat of mud over your corner tape. It almost like the box, just very very similar concept to the 10-inch box, but it does take a while to get used to it. It's also might be a bit of a pretty expensive tool, depends on how you look at it, but it's totally worth it. It does have a tendency of leaving these globs in the corner, but and a little bit of drippage, but those are easily fixed along the way. Another close-up shot, if you can see, there is some technique in holding this piece of machine, this particular equipment. There's a specific way to push and pull, and that will go into more details, right? Of which way to push, which way to pull. But realistically, you're trying to get, into each corner, onto each edge with full thrust. You don't want to stop halfway or anything like that. You want to do a full sweep. Sometimes you find that you may have to go over an area once or twice, but that's typically common in taping where you have to pass over an area once or twice to get the desired effect of how you expect to have a finish, right? So you may have to pass over a joint once, pass over it twice, just to fill the gap in an even and consistent, clean way. With this machine, there is a bit of tendency for overspill. With all the machines, I think there is a tendency for overspill. That is something you're going to have to clean and address a little bit later. And here's one of those examples of the overspill. And now that we're in the cleaning process, you get to see some edges that are too high. You get to see some globs that are too big, and you have to clean that area up. Now, it's hard to describe specifically what I'm doing here, but consider that anywhere you stop the machine, you need to fill it in or even it out, let's say. So because all the corners meet, we have to flatten that corner out. We have to give it a smooth, consistent look. Right at that edge is where the corners meet. We have to flatten it out. So while it's wet, before it gets dry, you need to do this process. So I would say do do a small amount at a time. Do like half of a room until you're comfortable in in how fast it dries, how thick it gets. Because something about mud work is that it's always drying. As soon as the mud hits the wall, it's drying, right? Yes. So as I was saying, as soon as the mud hits the wall, it starts to dry. Most people want to know. Question frequently asked question is how thick am I making this mud? Is it a very thick mud? And quite frankly, it's not so much a thick mud as it is so much a creamy mud. Think of something like whipped cream. Think of soft served ice cream. It's got to be not thin, but it's got to be creamy. And the thinner the mud, the more messier it's going to be, no matter what machine you use. The thinner the mud, the more messier the walls are going to be, the more harder it is to clean. There is some advantage to making the mud thinner, but that's something you have to gain with experience. For now, you want the mud to be somewhat of a thick mud, right? Typically, these are called the three ways. These inside corners are called the three ways. I'm just cleaning them up. I'm not finishing them, so I'm not going to call them three-way right now. Right now, they're just where the mud meets. Where the mud meets, you have to clean it up, right? So you want to make it nice and clean, but let's not go crazy about perfection right here. The idea is practice, practice, practice. Become a better taper. All right, so while using the machine, sometimes you'll find that the machine does not sit in every corner completely flush. And this corner that you just saw me do is an example, the one in the ceiling. The one in the ceiling is one of those corners that you have to do one at a time. You do one side, and then when you come back the next day, you do the other side. There's more examples coming up of this one side. But how do you approach something like this is just by putting it flat on the wall, give it an even coat, and a consistent pull. Stopping, jerking your knife does not necessarily give you an even, consistent finish. What it tends to do is leave those characteristics behind. So a flat, even, smooth finish is what you're looking for, and that is how you should approach, you know, doing these areas. These areas need a flat, even approach. And again, as you can see here, I'm just cleaning up the wall as I go along and trying to keep the wall consistently flat, consistently even, and trying not to miss a spot. A note of advice here, always after you finish your job, go back and double check, because leaving the mud on the wall, it turns hard after say 24 hours and it's dry. It tends to become extremely hard. So sanding is a bad option. You're going to have to dig it off. You're going to have to damage the wall. It can be fixed, but nobody wants to go about it that way. These small tedious spots you might have to pay a little bit of attention to, but it's totally worth it. Once you finish the job, it looks flat, it looks even, it's very consistent. And I guess that's gonna wrap up most of this video, just because we covered the basics of what you're trying to do. We covered the basics of the machine. The machine may change, but the practicality is the exact same. You want a flat, even, consistent surface. You want no overages, no spillover, and your mud needs to be a bit of a whipped cream type of a finish. And here's the final product. Here's what it should look like, right? Semi what it should look like. And these are all your edges. They should be at least touched with some mud, or else it's going to cause a sense of imperfection. This is your inside corner where all three corners meet. We'll do a three-way there later. And again, try to keep it even. Try to keep the wall clean. Anyways, thanks. I hope this helped. And keep on taping.